Jennie Joseph presents The Hands That Caught Us, a legacy podcast series with our midwife elders, an archival offering through the Perinatal Pause Podcast with Jennie Joseph, where we rest, reclaim, and remember one story at a time. Welcome to The Hands That Caught Us, a sacred series within the Perinatal Pause Podcast with Jennie Joseph. In each episode, we sit in reverence with our elder midwives, keepers of ancestral knowledge, community healers, and witnesses to the sacred continuum of life. These conversations are a pause, a restoration, and a reclaiming of our birthright. These are the stories that built us, and these are the stories that sustain us.
Well, hello, welcome, midwife, elder midwife, Sakina. Yay!
Yay! Thank you for inviting me, Jennie. I appreciate this opportunity.
I'm so excited to just hear your story and to reconnect to you. You know, we sort of cross our paths as we go on our way, but, you know, it's so good to have a little undisturbed time with you. And I know everyone wants to hear more about midwife Sakina and what she's been up to, how she got started. Let's start with that. When did midwifery hit you, Sakina? Go all the way back if you have to, but let's figure this out.
You want me to go all the way back?
All the way. I know you're a young'un. You're a young elder.
Why, thank you, my love. All the way back. Let's see. Well, you know, I want to say, I started my midwifery journey. Oh God, what year was it? It's so long ago. I can't remember the years, but it's almost 30 years ago.
See?
Yeah. I received the calling, you know. Let me just start by saying I've been a practitioner in the medical industrial complex, I'll call it, for I want to say over 40 years. A lot of people don't know I've been actively practicing medicine for some time. I believe I graduated from the Sophie Davis Biomedical School at City College. I'm sure I'm dating myself.
Is that New York?
New York. Physician Assistant School, and that was back in 1986. No, Whoa. 84. Yeah, so long ago, my God. So I've been practicing medicine and preceptoring midwifery students, nursing students, physician assistants from way back when.
Back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. I used to, I was employed at Harlem Hospital, OBGYN. I believe I was the first, I was the first physician assistant hired in that OBGYN department. And of course, I was the first Black.
Even in Harlem Hospital, right?
Even in Harlem Hospital.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that was 1980s.
That was in the 80s, yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I practiced as a PA in OBGYN way back when. And I was the ER PA. So I saw everything from gunshot wounds to whatever, but it was always around labor and delivery. But because you worked in the ER, you was exposed to it all and called into different things. But you know, the focus was labor and delivery, OBGYN. So my calling to become a midwife started years later when I worked at Morris Heights Health Center, now known as Morris Heights Health Pavilion Center, something they renamed themselves. And that was the first, I believe, out of hospital birth center in a so-called, I'll quote, urban setting. And
was that Brooklyn, Sakina?
That was the Bronx.
In the Bronx, okay.
Bronx, New York, yeah. And so I worked at that community health center and was surrounded by midwives, and that's where my calling came. It was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. You know, sometimes you're working in an area or a field and you really don't even realize that you're really not even really working, living in your purpose
Yeah.
yet. And that might not
Yes.
come until, 15 years, 10 years, sometimes even in your senior years, you realize, you
Mhm.
know what, I'm not even walking in my purpose.
That's right.
So I realized that I wasn't then, and then everything comes to you. Everything comes to you spiritually. It's like, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to catch babies. I'm supposed to support women, and then everything comes to you like a portal. It's like, okay, I'm going to download now that you realize this is your purpose. Guess
Yes.
what?
Yes.
Your grandmother was a midwife, and I'm like,
Uh-oh, is that
everything
real?
starts to come together.
Your grandmother really was a midwife?
My grandmother was a midwife.
And you didn't know that at the time, or did you always know that?
No, I didn't know that in my early years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I want to say something about um, African Americans, and it's not for everybody, but
Mm.
some of us are escaping trauma,
Yes.
and that is not something that she publicly spoke about. In fact, she shied away a lot from
Mm.
the South because it conjured up feelings of trauma. She, came from a very abusive marriage, so I think any kind of memory of it, she really didn't want to share or speak of. So when I found out that she was a midwife, of course I sat at her feet and asked many questions, but it was like pulling teeth
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
not only was she suffering from what I call post-traumatic slave syndrome, she also was wanting her children and her grandchildren to live like the American dream, so to speak,
Yeah.
and take on that standard of living and culture and practice and leave the old ways behind, so to speak.
Can
Um,
I take you back a little further?
mhm.
Where was her heritage? Was she coming up from the south of the United States?
Yes. My grandmother was born in the South, in St.
Mhm.
Matthews, South Carolina. So that's where um, I want to say my ancestors are from,
Mhm.
South Carolina and North Carolina, because my father's people are from North Carolina. And so she actually, in my book, I speak a lot about how she came up from the South.
Mm.
Um, and she was running from her, abusive husband. And she actually left with two black eyes. But so it was very painful past for her. Not only was he abusive to her, he was abusive to my mother's siblings,
Yeah.
extremely. And so, so I understood, more so later on in life, how painful it was for her to
Hmm.
share um, those parts of herself. So I don't blame her for it. I love her because she spiritually, I want to say, passed on all of her knowledge to me through DNA and just for being in her presence. So there's something about receiving information spiritually and
Yes.
cellularly, because I was inside of my mother's womb, and so of course I was inside of her too, if we want to really go
That's
back
right.
scientifically.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, so getting back to me starting
Hmm.
midwifery.
Yes.
To
Yes.
talk about that, your story without
But this
talking
is the point.
about, yeah, all of those,
The
you know,
ancestral
highlights.
lines and the
Yeah.
impact and the, like you say, I think the downloading even,
Mm-hmm.
in today's languages, it makes sense
Yeah.
now.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
just probably didn't have words all those years ago. But
Yeah. We
I
couldn't name
mean,
everything, huh? We spoke about it, we just could not name it. But now, we are able to name a lot. And
yeah.
so that helps us heal and helps us, move forward. But yes, I am standing on her shoulders, and I'm standing on the
Mhm.
shoulders of her mother and
Mhm.
my grandfather's mother. All of them have contributed to this journey, and I thank them every day for it. But I started midwifery at SUNY Downstate. I went to SUNY Downstate midwifery program.
Which
And
was nurse midwifery at that point, right? You were a PA, but you went in
right.
through the nurse midwifery, the CNM route.
Actually, no, I actually
Okay, tell. Come on.
I know it's so layered.
That's what I want to
Um,
know. I want
I
all the
know.
stuff.
I was
So,
the first
mhm.
class of, I want to say, direct entry midwives through the SUNY Downstate um, midwifery program. So that was a non-nurse program. That was kind of like a pilot program. We were the first class.
You
And
were. What year? What year are we talking about?
that was 1996. Yeah.
Okay. Was that the certified midwife or was that licensed
Certified
midwife for New
midwife.
York?
Certified midwife.
Certified
CM.
midwife. Hmm.
Yeah. CCAT and Mary. Yeah, because people get all of these acronyms mixed up. So
Yes,
yeah,
they do.
yeah. And New York recognized the certified midwife and the certified nurse midwife.
Those are
So
to this day still joined.
mhm,
The certified nurse midwife and the CM, the exam is through the same board, the same certification essentially, right?
mhm, right.
And hospital based, even as a direct entrant.
Even as a direct entry, it
Yes,
wasn't about how you came in, it was about how you came out. Meaning
very
that
well.
you can come in, you had to have, of course, a secondary degree, a Bachelor of Science,
Hmm.
and you sat in the same classroom as the students who were going the nursing route,
Yes.
same courses, and we took the same exam, same end of curriculum exam, same board exam, and accredited by the same body.
And clinically trained in the
AAPD.
hospital setting.
Clinically trained in hospital setting.
Yes, that's real
Okay.
important. The folk who
Mhm.
don't know this stuff, even to this day. So you
Yeah.
were a pilot program. So they must have said, yeah, let's keep going after you guys did it.
Yeah. I
All
think our
right
numbers
now.
are like zero zeros. Yeah, we were kind of the first. And our experience was through NCB, um, North Central Bronx Hospital,
Okay.
huge labor and delivery service, and a large number of midwives who precepted us. So
Yes.
we really got our numbers quickly, fast. I mean, we saw everything. All of the direct entry students went through NCB. And so that was an 18-month program,
Hmm.
um, very intense, because part of it was unlearning, because
Yes.
of course I was a physician assistant. That is more of the medical
Hmm.
model,
Exactly.
physician-based model. So you had to unlearn your way of thinking, your way of practicing, delivering, speaking. It was a lot of unlearning, like, oh my God,
Hmm.
oh my God. But of course, it was transformative.
Yes.
It helped me look at medicine from a different perspective, and in terms of really recognizing the importance of, family-centered care and validating the voices of women and how you integrate that into the services that you render for this family. So it was very enlightening at the same time, educational. So
Yes.
I graduated from that program and then I went back to get my master's degree. And they had a master's degree component later to get that. And then later on, went back to nursing school. So it's never too late. I want to say to your audience, never
That's
too
true.
late to go back to school if you just have a desire. So my journey was a little different, more fragmented, and spiritually led, and just coming to realizations about my path and my life. And part of it was learning lessons through the midwifery community that I served
Hmm.
and through the women and
Hmm.
families I served. You try and edit and relook at ways of how you show up, and also integrate external factors. There was one point in my career I was practicing as I'm skipping over a whole lot, but I'll go back. I was
Okay.
practicing independently in my home in New Jersey. And, you have autonomy and a lot of it.
Yes.
But then sometimes you bump up against a lot of resistance. And so, I realized I could not get admitting privileges in the
Yes.
hospitals because, sometimes in your career, you're like, oh my God, I want to offer services to all women, not just those who are interested in home birth. How about everybody? You come to those, an
I
epiphany.
do know.
And so I was like, I'm going to do that because everyone deserves to have
Yes.
that option, to be served by the midwifery model of care. But some hospitals were very resistant, even though you could practice legally as a CM in a birth center or a hospital.
Yeah.
There were some hospitals that were resistant to change, and they would not change their policy in terms of these are the credentials that we approve for admitting privileges. Do you have
Yeah.
your nursing license?
That's right.
And I didn't.
Right there.
Right there. That was it.
It's so interesting because it's so integrated. You were sharing about, the spiritual aspect, which, we try to sort of tuck it in here and there within these very diverse and disparate ways of getting to midwifery in the United States, right? We have long since passed and lost the autonomy that came with you were clearly who you were, why you were, and how you were. No
Right.
argument, right?
Right.
Of course, it was particularly, led by midwives of color, so-called granny midwives. We call them grand midwives. But the immigrant midwives that came with immigrant communities, they service their communities with autonomy. The
Yes.
indigenous midwives always, obviously,
Yes.
had the autonomy. All of the normalized midwifery ways of being,
Yes.
the ability to center your family, your community, the birthing people, without any argument, with all the other political things aside, there was no question about what midwifery was. Now, even now, 30 years in, I'm 45 years in, even now, this question, like, what's that? What do you mean? How could it be you go this way? How come you didn't go that way? All of these alphabet soup, all of the different entryways, boards and licenses, state laws and rules, the naming, it's just a holy mess. And I feel like that may be because we lost that spiritual side in terms of midwifery being what it has been for millennia, being with woman.
Yeah. 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 And that history of the grand or granny midwives really is very strong in my practice and as well as our training program. It really is incorporated into the coursework that we do in terms of remembering their legacy and restoring some of that ancient wisdom, reclaiming it, and celebrating those healing ways.
Well, let's stop a second and make sure you need to share. Let's just jump you over a minute because you can always go back, like you say. But let's talk about your midwifery school. I want that history. That is precious and important history, and we need you to spell it out. Go.
Well, I am the founder and director of A Woman's Way Warrior Midwife Training Program. And that is a training program that focuses on increasing the number of midwives of color, particularly around Black women. And my goal was to diminish maternal mortality and infant mortality in communities of color.
There you go.
Those communities that really have, I want to say, experienced the most in terms of the maternal mortality rate. And
Yes.
so I wanted to find ways in which to diminish those vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And so one of those ways, in my opinion, is to increase the number of, I want to say, culturally competent um, uh, midwives who can offer trauma-informed care, who
Yes.
offer care from the midwifery model base,
Yes.
and who center the voices of women and who integrate those components of their lives that help them live, that help them reclaim their power. So that's part of why I started my program. It was all based in my heart, my passion, and the history, of course, of the Grand Warrior Midwives. I call them Grand Warrior Midwives.
I love that
Love
terminology.
that.
It's so
It's-
powerful. What year
Mhm.
did you begin your midwifery school, Sakina?
Midwifery school started in 1996.
For the
Yeah,
warrior midwifery?
for
Yes.
me.
No, I'm
Oh,
asking for
my
your
midwifery
school.
school
Yes,
started
when did you,
December 2020.
right? There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So you are on your way to 5 years since you started the school.
Absolutely. Yes. And it has been quite a journey.
You see this
Quite a
face?
journey. I'm sorry.
I was just looking at you with that face because I'm like, yeah, I know.
Right. It's quite a journey because there are so many layers
Yeah.
to running a successful training program. I mean,
Yes.
so many in terms of organizationally, operationally,
Mhm.
administratively,
Yes.
there are elements to, funding issues and
Mhm.
um, accreditation issues and human resources issues. So there's like, it's just so many components to running a very successful program. And
What has you prevailing? What has you fighting through all of those obstacles? You're still there. You're still going strong. I know you're doing amazing work. So what's driving you?
I think a number of things, my commitment, divine spirit, of
Yeah.
course.
Yes.
Um, I it's my passion and purpose. I'm so dedicated to remembering, restoring, and reclaiming the legacy of our grand midwives. And that's so important to me. I think it's a critical element foundationally to the program and also for these up and coming midwives, particularly in this climate, to
Yes.
help them thrive and sustain their practices and sustain themselves. It's so important, of course, to have the core competency courses, but I want to say the larger, more critical elements to me is creating those courses that help them, stand in their power and,
Right.
creating that space and or ways in which help them push against those larger, the larger ecosystem that really kind of goes against, or I want to say not goes against, but that undermines reproductive justice.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that is really important, the
Yes.
sacred sister circles that we offer for our students that help them create containers so they can sustain themselves, so they can focus on self-preservation and diminish their risk for
That's right.
pathology and
Mhm.
diminish the weathering that goes on within the midwifery communities, particularly for Black midwives are
Yes.
dying. And a lot
Yes.
of them are dying from, shall
Stress,
I say, breast
racism.
cancer.
Oh, yes.
How
The
many can we
illnesses.
name?
Hmm.
So, and if they're not dying from that, it's something else related to stress, high blood pressure. It's just, we need to focus on, yes, core competency and the science, of course, that it's foundational to
Yes.
serving your community as a midwife, but those other components that help you manage, navigate that multi-dimensional role that we play
Yeah.
every day. It's a multi-dimensional role in balancing how am I going to serve my clients, even though I have my priorities at home with my 4 or 5
Right.
children.
Yes.
and I need to get somebody to the doctor, or I'm missing a football game, and I have
Yes.
a client who thinks she's in labor and she's not, and then I have to wear the hat of the social worker as well, and the therapist. So it's so many dynamics. So those
Yes.
parts to me are just as important as the core competency courses and skills.
I agree. I
Yeah.
think it's so relevant in this current climate that we're in that, and everything you say, I just echo all of those sentiments when I think about, the work we've done in terms of really revolutionizing patient care, patient service,
Yeah.
patient and mama baby centric
Mm-hmm.
approaches, right? Being
Yes.
with woman.
Yes.
We found a way. I mean, most of us in this work, most of us in this justice level of the work,
Yes.
find a way when there's no way. Just like the grand midwives found a way when there was no way. The
Yeah.
enslaved midwives
Mhm.
found a way when there was no way. Your grandma found a way.
She found the way.
She literally
Yeah.
got away and made
Yeah.
a way, right? And we have that as part of our midwifery heritage too. But what we figured out a while ago was that as much and as, all our efforts going into the mama baby and the family and the community, if we don't center ourselves as
Yes.
the
Yes.
providers who are able, who are interested, and almost charged with taking care of those communities, we are not going to make it either. And all of us are at the same level of risk for harm. And once we got that, we were like, well, we have to create programs that hold the provider in center in
Yeah.
order to hold the family in the center. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't do that, it's disingenuous and you're just adding to the problem. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just grateful for you and your way of thinking, your way of being, holding the line that you're doing in incorporating into your midwifery training, into your school, and modeling for the rest of us to
Mm-hmm.
understand these programs that just churning out these automatons who can do fancy hand maneuvers. That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
That is not what we're talking about.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're right. Yeah.
So, okay, so let's jump back a bit. So you're out of school, you're now a CM, you're working in New Jersey. From there? Where are you going from there? What happened?
Actually, when I graduated, I wrote a little proposal to my current employer to support me in terms of tuition. And so one of the agreements was I came back to work at
Ah,
the birth center, Morris Heights
yes.
Birthing Center back then. So I came back, and of course, I was expected to be hired as a certified midwife, right? At the birth center, like you said, you signed the agreement, but when I came back, there was no positions available. Let's say they agreed to hire 8 midwives, and all 8 midwives were there. So there was no room for me, so to speak, as they said. And so that was very disheartening for me, but I came back and worked back in, I think it was labor, no, it was the OBGYN department
Mm-hmm.
in the health center across the street. So I still saw pregnant women, but
Right.
prenatally. I wasn't able to
Okay.
do births.
Right.
Disappointing now as a midwife.
Right.
You
Right.
want to do births. So I think I waited about maybe 6 to 9 months, and someone resigned, and then I was able to go across the
To get
street
back in.
to the birth center, which was yummy for me. And
Once you have it in you, you can't not have it. Like it
yeah,
doesn't it
no,
doesn't go
yes,
anywhere, right?
it doesn't go anywhere. This
Mm-hmm.
extreme desire to
Yes.
practice your
Yes.
your craft, your skill,
That's right. Mm-hmm.
and live in your purpose. And I
That's
knew it. I
right.
was like, and it was so hurtful to me. I was
Mm-hmm.
crying to my dad and he
Mm-hmm.
kept saying, there is a purpose for you. It's not now. He kept saying, God doesn't want you at that center right this moment. Something is there
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want you there, speaking, from a place of divinity and ancestry.
Mm.
It was like, that's not where you're supposed to be right now. Stay where you are. And so, and he was right.
I was
And
gonna say, was
he
he
was right.
right?
He was right. He was like, you ain't supposed to be over there. And I won't go into, But anyway, I was able to go in and like 9 months later. It was such a beautiful transition. I had, I mean, it was just living your dream.
Yes.
Imagine you graduate from midwifery school and you get hired at a birth center, out of
Right.
hospital setting.
Right.
The
Yes.
ultimate dream.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
yeah.
I think a lot of the hospital-based midwives, the nurse midwives, they achieve the goal, they graduate, they're going to live their full midwifery life. And I think there's a little bit of a like, oh, oops, when they get to, oh, it doesn't really look like that. It kind of looks like labor and delivery nurse all over again with
Yeah.
little power, like, or not much power at all.
Right.
And
I'm not much
I
power.
wonder, your thoughts on the vast number of nurse midwives that there are in America, way more than there are in the community midwife groups.
Right.
Are those midwives feeling fulfilled, determined with autonomy? Are they feeling the midwifery that you just described?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Some of them may because they don't know any other kind of way.
Yes, that's
And
true.
then some of them may really understand and know intuitively, this is not the midwifery model. This is not what I was taught.
That's right.
I was taught to be with women, and to honor their voices and to incorporate their families every step of the way. Not part of the way, not when we feel comfortable allowing them in the room, every step
Right.
of the
Right.
way, and to honor her refusal or, her,
Right. Informed consent,
yeah,
informed refusal.
yeah. If she said no for exams, or if she said, no, I don't want that medication. So I think, yes, there is some type of turmoil for some of
Mhm.
the midwives who
Yes.
really go in with a different understanding and perspective.
And
But
then
go ahead.
conversely, I think of the
Mhm.
community midwives who have, you know, they have a different dilemma, the issue of
Yes,
getting collaboration and respect and support when
yes,
they have need of the institution, when they
yes,
have need of that transport and the collaborating provider to support
yes.
the next level of care that their client needs.
Yes. And I've been on both sides of
Right.
the table. So I know how it is to serve your community as a home birth midwife, a community-based midwife. Although I had different acronyms, I still was serving my community and not have that kind of support,
Yes.
that can be quite hostile. It was quite hostile many times
Yes.
and many adversarial encounters, and very traumatizing, I
Yes.
must say. Um, and for some places, it's normal. That's kind of
Well, no, it's
normalized behavior.
right. And they dig in and they are clear that they're not going to change anything, like you said earlier. I mean, you
Hmm.
even mentioned earlier the medical industrial complex. And I
Hmm.
think that's worth speaking about in relationship of making the correlation between that entire system and way of being and these outcomes that we want to keep putting onto the women, the birthing people. Oh, well, she was too fat. Oh, she didn't eat right. Oh, she didn't get prenatal care. All of the, other tropes that show up as if
Yes.
to justify these horrendous maternal outcomes. Yet
Hmm.
it seems, and, from a midwifery space, midwifery can't save us in this arena because midwifery still hasn't been able to find its foothold, hasn't been
Hmm.
able to operate in a smooth and congruent way
Right.
with this literal structure that is the medical industrial complex.
Right, right. And I want to say, it's not like that everywhere. I mean, I want to say there were some moments of the word I'm trying to say, continuous
Continuity of care?
continuity of care was very safe. It was
Where,
welcome.
where,
Was
where was that? Tell.
okay, so right here.
In New York,
No, I'm in North Carolina. I
in
know
North
my
Carolina.
story is hard to follow.
Yes,
So I want to
interesting.
say when I moved to North Carolina, Durham, Raleigh, North Carolina,
Yes.
specifically. Surprised at how I didn't feel that hostility. I was
Yes.
like, oh my God. I'm not saying it wasn't there,
Okay.
but to a large degree, in comparison to New York City, New Jersey, oh my God. It was like going from 100 to 25. I'm
So
serious. That in terms of
what time
hospital
frame? What years were we talking about here as far as that? When did you get to North
20, okay,
Carolina?
so 2020, I got to North Carolina and I toggled back and forth. So let me just say I worked at a birth center in Charlotte from 2016 to about 2018. Went back and forth to New York, working at the Brooklyn Birthing Center. And when I had to transfer, it was horrible.
Yeah.
That was 2000. I'm naming the years.
That's right. Name them.
2019 to 2020. I mean, 2020, 2019, and 2020. Still hostile.
Yes.
So I officially came back, I want to say 2009. See, I was going back and forth because I had
Yes.
residents back and forth, but I want to say I was here to stay in 2020, 2020 and 2021. And so I started my home birth practice back around 2022.
So it's interesting. And
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing from you, and thank you, because I do feel so much despair most of the time, but I'm hearing hope because you said it's not everywhere. Sometimes I think I'm speaking for myself. I get so overwhelmed with it that I'm like, it must be everywhere because it just seems to be a standard of practice that's not going to shift or budge very much. And that is with, all of the so-called interventions, oh, doulas are here, birth plans are here. Oh, we've got lavender. You want to, all the stuff is here, right?
Sorry,
As if that's going to get us somewhere. And I'm wondering if, or what feeling, and again, this is just me personally, I mean, other folk have got other opinions, but like, are we winning it? Are we even making a dent in terms of, one, the system, the medical industrial complex, if you will, but two, the midwifery ability to make an impact and for the midwives to be incorporated, integrated, acknowledged even, and become collegial supporters for health and safety. Like, this is where my despair shows up. So I'm happy to hear you say, oh, it's not everywhere, because that gives me a sense that you have some hope. You've seen some things, you've experienced them.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's everywhere in North Carolina now, because I lived in Charlotte, and there were times when I had hostile, but still not on the same level as New York. Charlotte was a little more hostile than the Triangle area, which is where I am right now. Now, what started to happen in Charlotte, there was collegial partnership. Because I had a relationship in the birth center, some of those midwives moved to the hospital and they were vested in me because they knew me. And they kept saying, Sakina, we know you out there. We're going to help you. So they helped partner a smooth transfer for my practice. And I think my practice was kind of a pilot because I heard other people were having better experiences. And so that helped, that kind of partnership, that kind of agreement. Now, it wasn't on paper, but it was verbal.
That piece. It's never quite on paper, but we're making some headway. I do think there are individuals who have forged a path or have stood on either side, community side or institutional side, and championed, pockets. And so this is from a perspective of movement building, rather than getting that sound clinical recognition and respect.
Right. So it's just an accepted relationship in its totality. Not, well, nationally even, I'll go as far as to say, or at least just within your own community or within your own county and then state. Do you know what I'm saying? So we don't have to do the work Do
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
every midwife has to kind of figure it out and navigate. Who can I find as their point person that I can partner with to make
Yes.
this a smoother transition? And some midwives do it through EMT. Some of them do it through inviting them, the chief
Yes.
to lunch or to some kind of webinar. I mean, we
I
try.
do donuts. I'm all
Yeah,
about the
donuts.
donuts. Those nurses, always start with the nurses. Triage nurses, L&D nurses.
Hmm.
That's where we start every single time.
Right. And sometimes it's just accepting the role. I won't name the hospital, but one in this area is we accept and they accept that when we're going to transfer, they say, okay.
Yeah,
It's not like that in New York.
that's right.
And they say when we get on phone, give a report, they say, okay.
That's right.
And we accept that when we get there, now when you get to the door, Sakina, say your byes.
That's
Or
right.
we might say, can we go in for a little while? And I say, all right. So I've accepted that.
That's right.
Really, am I going to have a non-hostile transfer if I accept the fact that when it's time, when I get to the floor and we have to part ways? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll
Yes,
take that because that
that's right.
harm and that trauma,
Yes. Well, we're still saving lives. That's our
yes,
goal. That's everybody's goal. And so
that's
by any means
exactly.
necessary, right?
Yeah, that priority is the health and
Yes,
well-being of that mother and
that's right.
baby.
Exactly.
And also
Exactly.
the harm. I have to say the harm because that harm kind of could live with you for a while. And,
Yes.
I,
Yes.
I'll take that. You mean I'm avoiding the harm if I say, okay, it's time for me to leave. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the reality check is really key to getting through any of this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about your book. You said you have a book. Tell.
I published a memoir in 2013,
Oh,
Journey to Birth. And it basically is about my life, how I came to become a midwife,
okay.
the lives of the women I served, a lot of birth storytelling, and a lot of lessons learned, and just
Yes.
empowering and encouraging in any individual who is trying to birth something. And it might not be to become a midwife or birth worker doula, but it might be something, some
Yes.
entrepreneurial endeavor. And so
Yes.
that was the intent of the book, was to just encourage, educate, and empower through my lessons and my life. So the book is called Journey to Birth, and you can purchase it off of my website.
All right.
Mhm,
Okay. All
mhm,
right. Well, listen, I want to wrap us up, but I want to get from you.
mhm.
I mean, you spouted wisdom the whole way through, but any particular words that you want to leave for the younguns, for the up and coming midwives, for the elders, for your sisters, anything you want to share, a blessing, any practice, anything. What do you
Oh
want
my
to say?
God. There's so much to be said.
Say it, girl. Come on.
But I would say, follow your dream. It's, whatever you feel that you're passionate about, nurture that and follow that, really sit quietly if you don't know, and see what falls in your heart and what falls in your lap. But if you feel like you found your purpose and your passion, nurture that and
Yes,
follow that dream. Stay on that pathway and reach your dream.
beautiful. Well, I want to thank you, elder midwife, sister midwife, Sakina Uhuru.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you for
you.
pausing with us and for sharing your sacred story. And may your hands and your heart and your history continue to guide us. And this has been a definite moment for me of remembering and resting and reclaiming. Thank you for coming on the Perinatal Pause podcast. And this is our series, The Hands That Caught Us. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Love you.